Welcome back to Pull Up with Miles and Owen, episode 20 today. This week, we're joined by WNBA vet Sequoia Holmes, who will be suiting up for AU for the first time this year. Welcome, Sequoia. Welcome to the show. Thanks for pulling up.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we're excited to talk about a lot of things, and we want to get into your overseas play. By our count, you've played in 8 countries, which is ridiculous. It could be more. We're gonna get to that, but we want to start with Athletes Unlimited because it's a cool opportunity to stay stateside and play in the winter. How did Athletes Unlimited come onto your radar?
Um, Sydney Colson, good friend of mine. We played in San Antonio together the first year. Reached out to me like, hey, I'm getting involved with this new league. It's player driven. I want you to get on the Zoom calls. The PEC at the time and the exec committee could kind of tell you about it. She talked with me or sent me the link. It was just like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 players at that time. But I was just still kind of in between going overseas. So I ended up signing to go play Euro Cup in Greece that year. So I was just like, no, I'm going to pass. I already signed or whatever to go play Euro Cup. Obviously, being a new league, didn't really know what to expect. And then the following year, I was signed to go to Italy. Sydney first introduced me to it. I thought it was very cool back then, just was kind of already tied to something.
I already have a
Yeah.
follow-up that we didn't even plan on getting into because I just have to ask about Sydney Colson, a legend. What's she like? Like her public persona is so amazing and hilarious. What's the Sydney Colson that you get to see as her friend?
The same one that everyone sees for sure. Maybe even a little bit more of what you guys don't see. So, but Sid's awesome, but I think as outgoing as she is, and as bigger personality as she has, she's such a sweet person, very very giving and kind. So I don't know, a lot of people may not know that side of her. She's just a good human being. So
That was my experience talking to Sid last year with you were talking about the players executive committee at Athletes Unlimited and with Sid's placement on that, just kind of seeing a different side of her as a leader, as someone who's, you know, in at the front of the line and not someone who's just at the back making jokes and just like cutting it up with everybody. But to see Sid have those layers that you might not get to see when she's, you know, giving her Aces teammates trouble on social media or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
she's dope.
yeah. The I wanted to ask about something that's unique to AU is just the scoring system, right? That it's basically like fantasy basketball, but that you're playing in the moment. Every single thing that you do, you make a shot, you miss a shot that will give or take away points, and you got to win quarters. So like, there's this balance of trying to play team basketball, and then there's the balance of knowing that every single thing that you do individually will also be graded and that will go into the redrafts and everything like that. Do you have any trepidation about that? Or do you think, as soon as the ball is thrown up, you're just
No,
hooping?
I think as long as you play the game the right way, and try not to get so caught up into the leaderboard stuff. I think it kind of comes organically. I'm actually a fan of it for me because I'm kind of I guess what you would call a stat stuffer, right? Every category in the stat line there's something there for me. Traditionally, rebounding, assisting, scoring, and things like that. So steals, when somebody can fill it up, it's beneficial for them, I guess, to be able to be in those types of categories.
Yeah, we were looking back at your UNLV days and that guard forward wing, like you're kind of a tweener in that spot. So like you were, leading that your team as a guard in rebounds. So I think that that's the kind of thing, like you said, that's going to really play well at AU.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we jumped on the call, you said you grew up in Vegas. You're back in Vegas now, but you stayed local for UNLV. Your
Yep.
professional career too. You started undrafted, but then go to Houston as a rookie. and play a little bit there. Is that the first time that you were away from home? Like I know that you traveled obviously when you're playing in college, but living away from home was as a pro?
Yeah, yeah. First time living away from home. I mean, I lived, on campus my first year as like a rule, and then I had an apartment and things, so I wasn't in my mom's house, but yeah, we're like 20 minutes away from the school, so pretty much home. Uh, so first time living away was in Houston. Yep.
What was that transition like? Because I know at this point looking back, like we said, you've played at a whole bunch of different countries overseas, but that first time away from home, I'm sure is the toughest, and especially with being undrafted, like you had even less control over that, over where you were going to end up than some of the players that on draft night are like, okay, well now I have at least, 24 hours to pack a bag and go somewhere.
Definitely. I'd say for me, it was a surprisingly easy transition. I don't know if I was just ready to go because I had already been home all this time. But I traveled a lot when I was a kid, not really staying in places, but my family made sure that I was exposed to different things. And I actually was so ready to go that I didn't even stay for college graduation. I was like, I'm out of here. I was like, I left a bit early. I had already graduated in December. So at the semester, I was kind of just in courses and waiting for the season to be over. Once it was over, and the draft that year was in April, early April, actually. So right, like before um, the Final Four, like right when as that ended, a couple of days later, I think, that year. It was an Olympic year as well, and I just was like, I'm out. Like, so the transition was cool. I enjoyed Houston a lot. I loved it there, actually. I actually love Texas in general, as a place, to live, but also never really want to not be at home. So I love home. You were like, you never want to leave Vegas. I'm like, no, I spend enough time away, so I want to kind of be here. Yeah.
One of the reasons we were so excited to have you on is to get your perspective on the growth of women's basketball, because not many people can say that they played with Tina Thompson, Diana Taurasi, and Asia Wilson, kind of three different eras of greatness in women's basketball. So this is a two-part question. Firstly, with those players or any other greats that you've crossed paths with, any stories, anything you were able to soak up from these players? And then two, just what have you seen from the growth of the sport over the last couple decades?
Uh, so the first part, I mean, there's millions of stories for sure. The game, like being a part of that, those three like transitions of the game have been amazing for me. So much knowledge to soak up. I'd say the biggest thing that I've just learned, from all those vets, and even like just how to be a professional, right? Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. People are going to remember you, um, way past, basketball, for the person that you are. So that was something that was big for me. The vets kind of instilled that in me, like the hard work and the effort that you put into it. Not you're not always gonna like everybody, but respect is earned, and that was something that was huge for me. Um, but seeing all those three is great. Like to be able to, obviously Tina was at the end of her prime, probably going into retirement part, but some of her best games were that 2008 year, or like watching her carry that team. I mean, I think we were like half a game out of the playoffs or something like that. So that was amazing to watch with a very young team and a couple older vets. Um, Being in Phoenix was a great experience. Watching Diana go to work, and just her ferocity out there on the court, determination, just being unstoppable at times was good to watch. And then Asia just growing. She was still a rookie when I was playing, but you could see that the future was so bright for her, kind of coming in. Um, But I would say one of the funniest things is that back then we used to have like rookie duties and things like that, carrying bags and, you know, always, running to get Gatorades and just kind of having to do whatever, the vets put on us. It was a time for sure. I think they've gotten away from that a little bit, but it was fun. Um, and the growth of the game has been major. I also coach like girls basketball. I have an organization here in Vegas, and just seeing you know, from the financial aspect, what's been able to be provided to us. Things have changed a lot with endorsements and, you know, just seeing faces on TV.
Mhm.
If it's Progressive right now or State Farm and, you know, CarMax, just seeing Candace and Sue and all of them like on commercials with Steph and just the growth of the game from the business aspect is been huge. I think that what the ladies have been able to do with their new collective bargaining agreement has been tremendous. Um, you know, I think social media and just having cameras around all the time when you're seeing these young ladies able to dunk and so like being on social media and seeing these things firsthand, those types of um, outlets weren't available all the time, and they're waiting and they're excited to see like the next big play, the media for women's basketball. I think the game has grown so much and it's just getting better. So shout out to all those that paved the way for all the ones now that are here and they're getting the benefit of that groundwork. It's truly amazing.
You were ahead of the time when you had a blog of your own. We saw on your website and we read through that when we were prepping for this interview. So it feels like you also have one foot in the media camp. Like you feel like you're one of us almost because you were sharing your experiences and that really gave us such great insight into some of what you'd gone through in playing overseas. But also this was more so when you were already in Spain and you talked a little bit about or you talked about that experience and said that when you first went overseas that first trip wasn't for you, but now you're someone who has gone to Spain, Germany, Greece, Israel, Italy, Angola, Finland, Turkey. I'm sure I'm missing some in there too. What have you learned from those experiences, having, bounced around somewhat, but also having started your life, like you said, like mostly in Vegas, even if you traveled a little bit with your family, but never really as far as you have as in playing in all of these countries?
Well, yeah, like I really try to divulge myself into the cultures that I'm there, like try to learn a little bit of the language, obviously eat the food. I'm a big foodie, so all of those places, just experiencing the culture, trying to understand where I am. I think as a rookie kind of going to Spain, it was difficult. I didn't want to say it wasn't for me. I ended up getting cut just because they wanted to do some different things and I didn't think I really fit the coach's play style, but I think opportunity is everything,
Mhm.
right? So, getting the opportunity to kind of be who you are, be free, play, and have fun is huge in this profession in general, whether that be in a league or overseas. But just kind of staying with it, just determined to not be put out, because it's easy to kind of give up and say, well, the opportunity I want is not here. And then just kind of be like, I don't want to do it anymore. But my drive and passion just for basketball in general would not really allow me to stop. I knew, that I belonged. I would say I could play in the league for all of the years that, of my career. But again, opportunity is a huge thing. And we know, the deal with the league, the roster spots
Mhm.
there's not many, so kind of being able to go overseas and still work on your game, develop yourself and, coaches still being to see that you're active, Pokey kind of told me once, like, it's important to stay relevant. So if you're
Mhm.
playing, you're always relevant. So being relevant was one of my things. Like, it may not be on the stage that I'm that I want to be. But, you know, at the time overseas, you know, a lot of WNBA players were playing overseas. They weren't, you know, in a financial state to like just not play both seasons. So I would eventually be able to match up against some of them. And then that would be my time to kind of show what I could do. So sticking with it. Yeah, Spain was a trip though. It was an experience for me. Food, I love the food. I love where I was. I was in Ibiza, Spain. I actually had signed with two of my teammates from Houston. They were supposed to come, but they were injured at the time. So that made it a little bit tougher to, because they didn't come over immediately, make it a little bit tougher to transition. Um, but I mean, going into Germany, it was a little bit more of a, I could kind of go there, grow my confidence in playing. Wasn't um, wasn't such a difficult league to play in at the time, and ended up coming out pretty good, playing well, and I put on a good show for myself.
I have so many follow-ups because all of overseas play just is fascinating to me. Something that you wrote and that I think really came through in that answer was for every negative, there are two positives. And I think that that perspective for when you're going to be going through all of these different cultural situations, all these different life situations, like that, you have to be able to maintain some kind of like level-headed mantra or perspective like that, which is just something that is terrifying to me as someone who has to like schedule every single part of my day. But you talked about the roster spots in the W, and you were in the league at a time where it wasn't as growing in the way that it is today, where it was the final year of that Comets franchise, your rookie year. So the league was contracting in some places, which I'm sure made it even more chaotic to kind of build a career there too. So how do you kind of maintain that positivity, that just kind of keep your head up for this new opportunity? And then my next follow up is I just have to hear about some of your favorite foods at these countries that you've stopped at.
Yeah. Maintaining positivity. I think for me, I've never, you know, been counted in, right? So kind of always had a chip on my shoulder, wasn't highly touted out of high school, you know, had some good looks, right? But not necessarily if this is the kid that I want type of interest. Maybe wait and see if we don't sign someone else and we'll pick her up type of deals. Um, so, you know, the mindset started, you know, that perseverance was going to be something that I built, you know, built my game on, right? Being able to get through any adversity. And it wasn't easy for sure. There was times where, you know, you get discouraged, but just staying focused on the work that you put in, staying faithful, I like to you know, I have faith in God that, you know, whatever's for me is going to happen. And if it's not for me, then I got to move on to the next opportunity. You know, one door closes, another one opens type of mentality. And, you know, I was just in the gym, really a gym rat, you know, and that was hard in and of itself as well. Like just making sure that mentally I stay locked in on the things that I needed to do just in case the call came and I was ready. Because you never want it to be your fault. You know, if you know the call comes and you're so frustrated or mentally out of it that you haven't been focused on what you need to do for the time to come, and then you miss out on your opportunity. You can't blame anybody else for that but you. So I just wanted to make sure that I focused in on the work that needed to be done, staying in the gym every day, getting better, learning the game, but then, you know, sharing that game back. You know, my experiences, the things that I've gone through with the youth, they've motivated me a lot to stay at it, to keep trailblazing, if you will, in some of those areas. So yeah, and the foods, man, so many different foods. Like I'm actually a meat person, so a good lamb chop, or you know, Israel has some good lamb, turkey as well. Um, Paella in Spain was amazing. Seafood, pretty much in all of those Mediterranean countries around the Mediterranean, was pretty good. Um, I, man, It's so many different things. Greek food's amazing. Italian is my favorite. Traditional Italian is awesome. So
Man, I don't know why right
the
before
wine as
lunchtime.
well.
Yeah, I don't know why right before lunchtime I decided to ask you to list all of this food because now I'm gonna have to edit out the sounds of my stomach for the rest of the pod interview because that all sounds fantastic. Italy's on the top of my list. I haven't been there, but yeah, I could eat Italian food every day, basically.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I was like, we might have to abandon the last couple questions we have here to go get lunch. I did want to touch on something, we've talked a lot already about how much Las Vegas means to you, and you mentioned your organization. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that in depth and how much giving back means to you.
Um, well, it means a whole bunch. In the recent conversations with some of my mentors and people that I kind of expressed, like, I haven't really ever had that consummate pro to go look at, to see what things are like, how you should conduct yourself. I definitely have community leaders, but they weren't professional athletes that were women, right? That I could go and say, how do I do this? Or there was a few college players, but they were like years and years removed. So it was just a different time. But going like I'm kind of like the first of the class, so a little bit of pressure on me, I feel like, to set the standard of what that means for my city. And my community means so much to me because I was just embraced as a youngster, as a child. Mom and dad were always involved, but the community helped raise me. Boys and Girls Club kid, a community center kid, like, just always being kind of, there was always someone else there kind of watching when mom had to work. So, making sure that I was doing the right things, making sure that, instilling certain values in me that, I just was encompassed by so many different coaches and so many different people in the community. And I feel like I need to be that for some of the young girls because I know what I was missing coming out of high school. Like, how do I decide what college I want to go to? What things do I look at? Who do I talk to? Like, having those types of people. There wasn't one. My sister went to college, but wasn't a sport. She didn't play sports in college. So I don't know what questions to ask when I'm on a home visit. Like, I need to have a list or just someone that I could, kind of go to if I needed. And I was mature in the sense that any information that I needed, I would go seek it as a youngster. But even my parents, like, they just want to know if you're gonna take care of my baby. They don't know. They don't know. Like, hey, you might tell her sit in front of her TV and the couch and tell her she's gonna play every game, right? But when you get there, it's a totally different story. Like, those types of things, what questions to ask, and then just as I kind of got out of the league in Houston, I started doing basketball camps. I went back to my high school, and the first camp I had about 30 kids there, 30 girls, and that was an accomplishment for me to have them come out, some that were younger than me, and just I knew their parents or whatever. And then the next year it grew to 60, 70. The next year, every summer I was kind of doing that camp. And the biggest camp was like 120 girls out at my high school. And then there was one summer where I decided, right before COVID, I think, like, hey, I'm not gonna do the camp, but I was home for whatever reason in the interim, and I was watching high school basketball, and I'm like, man, I need my own organization. Like, I think that I need to grow this camp thing instead of it being 2 or 3 days and let it be a summer thing. And there was some talk about like academy style and doing some things like that. But, I went into the AAU market, um, with my own grassroots program. It was called Sequoia Select. And then getting involved with that, COVID kind of came around a couple years later. And as those kids kind of phased out, their senior year was the COVID year. So they graduated, and then I just was not doing it for obvious reasons. And then 2021, a good friend of mine who I played basketball with when we were kids, he had a few girls that were playing on his boys' AAU team. And he's like, you know what? I need you to come back into the AAU realm because I got all these girls and I'm a man. I have no idea what's going on. Like, you need to come and help me. And, you know, I couldn't turn that opportunity down. So I kind of ushered my few kids, because I had some middle school girls too, to him while I was still overseas. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna hold it down until you get back. And then we hitting the ground rolling with the girls program. And then it spiraled into something huge, especially for Vegas. Like, we got, you know, some girls that are getting very, very good looks. They're playing on the EYBL circuit. There's some big names, top, you know, at least top 30, 40 in their class right now. So that's huge. The culture here, girls basketball culture in Vegas, is growing and changing. So I'm so happy to be a part of that. We just are going to, you guys are probably the first media source to kind of hear, like, we're going to join Vegas Elite boys program. And so we're looking to do some big things. So it's exciting time right now.
That's so awesome. That's all really, really great stuff. And my follow-up to that was, have there been challenges when you are overseas, because you are so community oriented, in just maintaining the advocacy work and maintaining that growth? Because it does sound like, whether it's outside stuff like COVID that you can't control, or just the fact that the circuit is constantly evolving, and it really feels like it's a 24-hour a day kind of thing to keep up with all the coordination for tournaments, but also for, you know, recruiting talent and building and making sure that you are being that positive impact. How have you maintained that with a hectic overseas schedule?
Well, I think having a good support system, right? When I was on my own, my family helped out a lot. They were there helping me. But it was definitely difficult because I did a lot of things by myself. I think the best thing for me at the time was combining with Julius, which is the gentleman's name that's a good friend of mine from being young. We played AAU together when I played on the boys team. Because then we have a team of people, because it was so hard when I would, you know, be with them all summer and then I have to leave during their high school season. And of course, other AAU programs would show up to the games and kind of recruit them and things like that. And I wasn't able to be there hands on, and didn't, you know, my staff wasn't huge. You know, they were just volunteers, people that I played with. So they had work or things like that. So it was hard to be like so involved during the school season, but having them kind of combine, or us kind of combining with another organization. We had several coaches, and right now we kind of coach high school together. Like, I actually, he kind of pulled me into his high school program as well. So I'm assisting him there. So we're kind of hands-on with them all year round, but there were some challenges just when it was just me. I think building a team of people that kind of support you, and you guys have like vision, and we're able to understand that, you know, our club kids need to be connected with some of our coaches, like, so they may go to the same high schools that we have several coaches at or whatever, and we're able to keep the community together. So, you know, you always have a hierarchy of people, and delegating is huge. Making sure, you know, everybody knows their part to the machine. Does their working part for the machine, and things go a little bit smoothly. Like, there's always going to be bumps in the road. I think when you talk about the evolution of the circuit, it's always changing. You know, families are always changing. Everybody's going to be the next Asia Wilson. So we or have that thought. So, you know, just kind of putting the best product out there is the whole goal. And just to get these parents and families to do what's best for their kid. Like, I mean, whatever program that is, it doesn't really matter. Just that they're getting what they need from that service is the biggest thing.
So I wanted to close with something I read on one of your blogs, which were fantastic. This idea of active rest, I love. And earlier you talked about staying ready and how important staying ready is. So I would love to hear you explain this idea of active rest. From my understanding, you know, you might get only 1 month where you really are able to be away from basketball in
Yeah.
your schedule every year. And this is an idea where you are staying on your feet and doing things that are active, but also maybe restful mentally, like yoga, swimming, things that are enjoyable, but still active and keeping your body going. So I'd love to hear that from your perspective.
No, you're exactly right, Owen. Like, um, those type of physical activities that allow your mental to shut off at times. I mean, for me right now, the active rest part, being a little bit older, is huge. Like sometimes I'll just go in the sauna, for example, or steam room, and I'll get, maybe 20, 30 minutes of abs in there. I'm able to kind of decompress. That's huge. Hot yoga was one of the things I used to do a lot, which isn't, I don't rest at all. It's actually very, very difficult, but you kind of come out feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. But even things like hiking, what is one that I love. Some days I'll just, do some intense stretching, or, just go for a jog, and then maybe no on-court stuff on the weekends. Just maximizing the time that you have, even, if it's a time thing. So maybe I, get a 2 a day in basketball, weights or whatever. And then I don't do that again until I may take a longer rest in between, maybe not the next morning, but the next evening. So I'm kind of getting almost, more over, 36 hours of rest in that time. But just doing different things that kind of keep your cardio up, but doesn't pound on the body as much. That's what I would consider like active ref. It's been hard though right now, especially like coaching high school. Sometimes I'll jump in practice with them or whatever, and they're like happy, like it's their opportunity to get the coach back. So they're like setting really hard screens and on me and fouling me pretty hard and stuff like that. But it's cool. I think even like Miles, you had mentioned, how do you kind of stay enriched? Like I feel in the basketball culture, like I have to go. We're in the middle of playoffs. We're having our first round playoff game on Thursday, and after that, I got to go to AU. So I'm not gonna be around for semifinals or the championship, and it's one of the hardest things to be able to just like walk away because I got a whole nother career, and the girls are always a little bit sad but happy for me, and it's a time. So just kind of reminiscing on the time that, all right, it's time for work now. But I think, coaching and just the youth stuff is becoming a huge part of my passion. And Owen, I try to input some of that stuff into them, the active rest, right? Making sure you guys understand what it looks like for ice bath, and make sure you stretch, because we know when you're a kid, you're just out there, you hooping. It's not super important, but letting them know how taking care of your body and finding other hobbies, to do outside of basketball. I think that's a huge thing mentally too, because, a lot of athletes, that's all they do, you know. I'm a basketball player. Just in showing them that, there's other things out there, and you don't have to, you can be a basketball player, but it doesn't have to be like all of who you are.
Yeah, I know that Owen just said we wanted to get you out on that, but now of course I have more follow-ups because I remember you talking in your blog about the average career span for a female basketball player is 5 years, and you've been playing pro since 2008. And so I think that longevity plays in as well when you talk about all this stuff, where it's a holistic experience for you. It's not just the muscles that you need to get up and down the court, but it's everything to keep your body right, but to keep your mind right also. So what would you say off of the court is your favorite type of exercise?
Off of the court, swimming, for sure. One of the most difficult, probably the easiest tool to use to stay in better shape, because you got some anaerobic stuff in there too, just with your breathing. But yeah, that's one of my favorite exercises off the court to do.
And I wish I loved swimming. It seems like such a great workout. I need to trick myself into it.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing about swimming is you got to prepare. You got to bring a bunch of extra stuff. You know what I mean? It's like a hassle, but you got to shower and all that. So
Yeah, no, I think that's always been my challenge is like I'll go for a hike or something like that. But swimming, we're in New York City and like we don't really have the same access probably to like public pools or things like that growing up. So I would always go for a dip in the ocean and then that would be gross and then I would be out of it very quickly. But yeah, I need to get a pool. That's how I'm going to stay in shape. That's how I'm going to extend my window a little bit. And luckily the muscles that we need for podcasting are not the kinds that you need to keep playing pro. But Sequoia, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us about just all of your experiences in playing here, playing overseas. And we're really excited to see you at the end of this month in Dallas for Athletes Unlimited. A reminder, starts on February 29th and runs through March 23rd. And they'll be playing at Fair Park Coliseum in Dallas. Again, thank you so much for pulling up with us, Sequoia.
no, for sure. Thanks for having me. You guys asked great questions, and I really, really enjoyed myself. It was a pleasure for
We
sure.
appreciate that. We appreciate that. Have a good one.
Thank you so
You
much.
too.